Hello, Pokemon fans the world over. Welcome back to the Lille Regional Championships. We are about to go live with round 4 of our regionals today. I'm Freya Pierce, and I'm rejoined by the inimitable Ross Gilbert. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well indeed. And round 4's fun, because we've stolen a trick from some other streams we've seen from Pokemon.
We
you
have.
see, it's lunch break now, and we could take an hour off stream, or we could pick 2 round 4 games. Obviously, we've done the latter, and we're featuring a couple of players. They're not playing each other, but we've got a game with Reklev, who won Peoria Regionals, a big regional over in the US, best player in the world probably of the last 10 years, and Owyn Kamerman, who is currently #1 on the worldwide ranking. So they seem like 2 players we probably need to have a look at on stream.
Yeah, it seems like the obvious picks, doesn't it, from the bunch? And interestingly enough, both of them are playing against players that I think it's fair to say we haven't seen much on stream before. So both of these are very much going to be the up-and-coming new challenges against established names, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Indeed. I mean, I get a lot of questions like, how do you pick stream games? And the answer is, well, there's so many things that go into it. Certainly, you know, if we've got 2 big-name players playing against each other, I mean, round 1 today, having a defending Lille Regional Champion on stream is always a good one. But sometimes, you know, when you get to, say, round 4, well, we kind of want to see Tord, because Tord won Peoria Regionals. He's playing Lost Box again, so I hear that's a good one to feature. And the thing is, by the time you get to round 4, it doesn't really matter who Tord's playing against, because there's someone who's won their first 3 games at this regional. There's someone who's picked a really good deck, and they've gone and won a bunch. So, you know, the pairings become a bit less important as you go through the tournament, because if you're at 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, you're a very good player having a very good weekend, and that's kind of, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, it's very interesting as well, because I'm fairly sure we know for a fact what Tord is playing, but maybe I'm not sure we can talk about it just yet, because we're not sure the players have their microphones, but it's, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to anyone, I guess.
Yeah, that's always a fair point to make. I mean, it's interesting, you know, Tord did go and win Peoria Regionals with that Lost Box, of course. It was one of the Champions League, I think it was Yokohama Champions League, actually, location of next year's World Championships.
Yes.
That is, you know, where Lost Box really came out. Took a 2nd place finish. And now I've been playing with the Yokohama list a lot online, and that list is speedy. Like turn 2, 10 cards in the Lost Zone to activate Sableye. That has been like 80-90% hit rate. If you build it, and we're talking about lists with lots of switch card, lots of scoop up net, lots of just switch and escape rope. You can build that list to legitimately get 10 cards in the Lost Zone turn 2, and Sableye becomes very, very nasty. On stream so far today, we've seen lots of Giratina, and they don't have quite that speed.
No.
But they make up for it with a Giratina power.
Yeah, of course. You're trading off some of the speed for that little bit of extra damage, of course, with the Giratina's attacks, and also you can make use of Star Requiem, right, which is an insanely strong V-Star power, just instant knockout on anything. But Lost Box kind of operates more on this virtue of, okay, yeah, I'm going to very, very quickly get 10 in the Lost Zone, and I'm just going to spread damage everywhere. I'm going to control the board, and then at the end, I'm going to sweep in with Radiant Charizard or Radiant Greninja. So, you know, there's different approaches taken to clean out the last few prizes. Yeah,
it's certainly a deck I've been having a lot of fun with in this particular format. I mean, you know, you were talking about a lot of decks. I was talking with Benji about Hisuian Zoroark. I really wanted to get Hisuian Zoroark onto stream this round. There were a couple at 2-0. Unfortunately, neither of the 2-0s won. There is a 2-0-1 Hisuian Zoroark. There might be some others out there. We can't follow every single player, you know, for the entire tournament. There are quite a lot of players here, but certainly we've got our eyes on, you know, we're looking out there for interesting decks. And I mean, I had a good look round last round, and honestly, what is out there is what you would expect to be out there. Lots of Palkia, Arceus, Mew, Giratina, Lost Box, Regigigas. It's a lot of what we would expect. Essentially, think of a deck you imagine is good this format. It's out there.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, in the last round as well, of course, we want to talk about that. We saw Kai Wainwright playing Palkia, which has just been this long standing force in the meta, and still now able to put in a insanely strong showing at regionals like this. I mean, this deck just doesn't go away, basically.
No, well, I mean, it came out as Astral Radiance, wasn't it, Palkia? Yeah. So it's kind of, it had its format, and it absolutely dominated, I think that's fair to say. So now this is kind of like the second go for Palkia. We've introduced Lost Origin, that new expansion. So there was a question of, well, was it just, you know, think about something like Dragapult. When Rebel Clash dropped, Dragapult VMAX was like the best deck in the format.
Yeah.
And it lasted exactly 3 months until Darkness Ablaze came out. And at that point, it basically went away and it was never seen again. Dragapult had one go.
Yeah.
So with Palkia, it's like, well, is that going to be the case again? No, new sets out, Palkia's still amazing. And it does look like we are going to start off with Tord, and it does look like they have got the headphones now. So, I mean, look, I've heard Tord is playing Lost Box. I can't confirm 100%. However, I think we're going to find out, I think it's fair to say sooner rather than later.
Yes, we are. And, yeah, Tord, I mean, what can be said about this man that has not already been said? So many accomplishments over the last, 5-6 years of the game or so. One of the most decorated players in the world, and it's probably not even close. Maybe a little bit close, but even so, in recent years, it's you'd be hard pressed to find many people even close to his level of accomplishments, and he's still smashing it with success. And like you said, going over to Peoria and winning there as well, just like, you know what, it's not just enough for me to win in Europe. I have to go over and win in America as well. It's
a ridiculous accomplishment. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion going around social media the last few weeks. Who is the best Pokemon TCG player ever? We do have Jason Klaczynski, who won the World Championships 3 times. So I don't know if I'm ready to call Tord the best player ever. What I will happily say is, if you look in the past decade, oh yes, Tord. And I don't think there's anyone else who's really kind of a strong contender. There are brilliant players. Stefan Ivanov has won a couple of international championships. There's been a lot of very, very good players. But I don't think over the past decade anyone has got a resume that looks like Tord's.
No, I'd have to agree with that. And of course now we have to talk about Tord's opponent, Eric van der Zilver. Not someone we featured on the stream at all before. Fairly sure it's their first time on stream, but here's their chance to make their name and potentially try and pull off this upset against one of the most well-known players in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if you play Tord round 1 and you're thinking, well, this is Tord, he's a really good player, I'm not sure about this. You play Tord round 4 and you're already 3-0, and there's a real element of, well, you know what, I'm 3-0. Like, I've had 3 opponents, no ties, no losses, I'm just winning all of these games, so actually, you know what? Why am I worried about playing anyone at this stage? By the time you're 3-0, you've proven you belong to be at the top tables in this tournament, so there should be no worries here at all. Now, I do have the deck list. They've just come through. No, I don't have the deck list. I'm afraid they're from last round. We will get the deck list soon, but Eric van der Zilver, I mean, we can see a couple of Irida there, so I think it's probably safe to say it's another Giratina.
Yes, and it looks like, wait, Giratina.
It's actually Palkia.
Yep.
I was setting you up there, Freya.
I'm so sorry.
It fell really flat, but I tried.
I'm just completely oblivious there. I thought for a second. Never mind. But we see there, Tord is indeed playing the Lost Zone box, and Eric will be playing Palkia, so we'll be featuring Palkia once again.
Yeah, Palkia's everywhere, Giratina's everywhere. Tord is looking like a Giratina deck, but I don't think we're going to see any Giratina here. We see, Echoing Horn. We've got 2 Sableye. This is looking very much like that Lost Box deck. So Eric starts off then, and we do see a quick ball. It's going to go and get a Palkia, which, of course, you're going to need to be getting rolling for future turns. So now the real question is, how good a start is it? Do we have any Battle VIP pass? Or is it going to be a more of a muted start?
Yeah, so there is one Battle VIP pass in the prize cards. We do now have access to the deck list, so we can sort of have a look and see whether that means that we'll be access one. We see some Palkia players do opt to just play for the 1, and then they can search it out, but some do opt for the full 4. What is Eric going for here?
Full 4 Battle VIP pass and an interesting deck. Actually plays a couple of the Mew from Celebrations, which in theory gives you easier access to those Battle VIP pass turn 1. Did not work this time. And actually, if we look at Eric's deck, we've got 60 HP Mew. We've got 60 HP Sobble. If Tord is playing a Sableye deck, and he is, and this is what I was talking about before the game, if you're playing against these kind of decks, and there's Echoing Horn in Tord's list, you are going to see Sableye taking double KOs all over the place. How many Echoing Horn is Tord actually playing here? Only the 1, and it is prize, so that's at least some respite for Eric there. Some of these Lost Box decks will play 3 or 4, and that is brutal.
It is, and in all, the trickiest thing for Eric here is going to be, he knows he needs to bench these low HP Pokemon to set up his consistency engine, but he also knows that if he does that, Tord is going to absolutely prey on those with Lost Mine, so he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here, and you don't really want to be stuck in between a rock and a hard place when you're already up against one of the best in the world.
Indeed, and it is worth pointing out we are just playing Inteleon here. Excuse me, we're just playing your Palkia here. We're not playing Kyurem, which, you know, higher HP can help you sometimes. Unfortunately, it's very much a straightforward Palkia list for Eric. Now, Tor starting off here, we've got a Fog Crystal coming down, and it does very much look like Tor is going to be... If this matchup goes as we would expect it, and we know that doesn't always happen, but if this matchup goes as expected, you've got to think Tor is in the driver's seat here.
Yeah, you really, really do. And Fog Crystal going to go for the Comfey straight away, and Tor doing, of course, the very important first quick deck check just to have an idea of what's in the prizes and what's not. We'll have noticed, of course, that Echoing Horn is in the prizes now, but also at this point in the game, probably not really worrying about that too much, if I'm honest.
No, I mean, at this stage, it's very much a case of take those early prizes, soften up the Palkia. I mean, the Palkia, it really depends. I mean, what you want to do ideally is take a bunch of early prizes, and then Eric takes a couple prizes, and then Radiant Charizard comes out and deals with the Palkia.
Yes.
If Eric really sticks with the Palkia, that forces Tor into more of a kind of like 2-hit KO situation, maybe 3-hit KO. But either way, I think we're going to be in a decent situation, honestly. So... yeah, this is looking very good for Tor. We've got a couple of Sableye out. There are only 2 cards in the Lost Zone. Now, we are checking the prizes.
And that was from a Hisuian Heavy Ball.
Absolutely. So Tor now is going to know exactly what's prized, what he's got access to, etc. And the information, and don't get me wrong, like good players like Tor can look through their deck and find their prizes. But it's so much easier when you can just look at them.
Yeah, and that's one of the merits of playing Hisuian Heavy Ball. It's not just the fact that obviously it can get you important basics out of the prizes, but it's also the fact that you get to look at your prizes in a much more time-efficient way than looking through your whole deck and say, oh, okay, yeah, this, and this a prize, which obviously takes a lot longer.
Yeah, it's always nice to know, and of course, Tor's playing a completely basic deck, so Hisuian Heavy Ball, you've got to play Hisuian Heavy Ball. It's got to be done.
Yes.
So... still, we're not doing a lot of comfy jumping here. Now, we do see a comfy coming down, which is quite nice. I mean, we've seen, I believe those 2 cards in the Lost Zone are just from a Chorus's Experiment.
Yes, they were. It was the first thing that Tor played. Yeah,
so we've seen no comfies coming out yet, and this is really what Tor wants to do. I mean, the ideal here really is Chorus's Experiment, both turns, first 2 turns, 2 or 3 comfy, maybe a Lost Vacuum comes in there at some point, and you really want to get 10 turn 2. In a Giratina deck, you're not going to get 10 turn 2 often, and that's fine. In this matchup, you really want it.
Yes, because it's not just a matter of, oh, if I get to 10, I get access to this V-Star power, which one time will provide me an insane advantage. It's if I don't get to 10, I can't do my deck strategy. So it's so much more important for Tor than it would be for like a Giratina Lost Zone deck.
Yeah, do you want to KO 1 Sobble with Kamerman, or do you want to KO 2 Sobble at the same time with Sableye?
Yeah.
And it is, I've just checked, Tor is playing 3 copies of Lost Vacuum, so that's another card that can come out quite nicely. Get rid of a Stadium or a Tool, while also Lost Zoning a card in your hand. So now we see an Escape Rope into a second Comfy, and now we're rolling. This is what Tor wants to do. We've got Comfy number 2 on board here. There is another Escape Rope and a level ball in hand. So
there is, yeah.
There is a possibility that Tor could potentially do exactly that again and get a third Comfy going. And we do see a level ball coming, a quick ball coming down with Sableye, and it is for a Kamerman here. So it looks like Tor, rather than trying to do loads of Comfy jumping and going for the really aggressive Sableye, it's going to be, I'm going to get a couple, and then I'm going to get Kamerman to put 110 onto Palkia, and that actually says to Eric, you can evolve it, or you can give up 2 prizes.
Yeah. So, yeah, quick ball for the Cramorant. And that's like, I'm not sure, just following up from this, if so it does have another flower selecting, but I don't see like a way to get another Comfey after this. So that would be like the only sort of like concern here, which is that this may be the end of the chain of flower selectings at this point. Oh, there might be a dispute over whether Tor did flower selecting with that Comfey. No, I don't believe so, because there's only 3 cards in the Lost Zone right now. So
yeah. Exactly. So Tor's only used 1 Comfy so far. Does get rid of a Fire Energy. You don't love to see it. Tor's only playing 2, and that Radiant Charizard could be big. So Tor has to essentially, if that fire energy comes up in a Chorus's experiment or a Comfy in the future, Tord has to take it regardless of what it's paired with and what it makes him lost zone.
Yeah, and there was another escape rope, so the Sobble going back into the active, Tord switching into the Kamerman, 4 in the lost zone, means that the attack can go off, and that will be the first prize of the game for Tord.
Yeah, really good, and gets a path to the peak down, which is very good because, of course, Eric can evolve this turn, and Eric has no energy on the field. So what Tord's basically saying is, I want to try and turn off your V-Star power on Palkia. I want to make it so that you cannot get a big attack off with Palkia or with Radiant Greninja. And then as an extra little check against Radiant Greninja, we did see the Manaphy coming down from Tord there as well.
Yeah, Manaphy down, of course, just to prevent any shenanigans from Radiant Greninja. Though your Radiant Greninja is not something that you want to be dealing with when you have so many of your own, like your low HP Pokemon in play. So, yeah, just nipping that in the bud before it even has a chance of becoming a thing. Because, I mean, it's not impossible for Eric to fire off a Radiant Greninja this turn, in theory.
Would need to bump the path to the peak, but yes. And that's why I think Tord put down the path to the peak and the Manaphy, because you're right. It's awkward, but it is doable. Oh, having said that, we do see Lost City coming down.
Oh, hello.
So this is becoming more and more viable by the minute. Now we see Palkia. Now we see an energy attachment for the turn. But there's no energy in the discard, unfortunately. And
no, there's one. Oh, there's a Star Portal for 1 energy.
Oh, you don't want to see it.
No, and that means that Radiant Greninja is definitely off the table. So, I mean, I guess it was off the table regardless because of the Manaphy. But even so, yeah, that's Star Portal for 1 is not ideal in any universe.
No, we do need to see Eric flip that V-Star counter, of course, over on his side of the field, show that the V-Star attack has been used.
Yes.
So there's no shenanigans in the future. That is not what you like to see. It is never a good thing to have to use Star Portal for a single energy to get a KO on a Kamerman, and then that means that the next Palkia is more awkward to get. It means trying to get Radiant Greninja firing is going to be super awkward. It's just, it's a little bit, no, I don't like it.
No, and another awkward thing is that actually Eric has inadvertently helped Tord a bit, because sure, the Kamerman's in the lost zone, but that means it's another card in the lost zone that it adds to Tord's count and gets him closer to Lost Mine.
That is actually a very, very good point, the fact that you've just put a card into the lost zone. Now, and Eric's in such an awkward position here, because you want that Sobble engine, but you can't play them. They are too risky. So you're basically lost without it. So Eric's in an unfavorable matchup without his general draw/search engine, trying to survive on this Palkia. And the good news is Palkia is going to run through these little Pokemon quite easily. That's lovely. But the problem is you're going to come a point where the damage is going to build up. And then what do you do? And that Radiant Charizard is going to be putting on a lot of pressure in the late game.
And, well, we're putting on a lot of pressure in the late game if we get to that point. I mean, we did see Eric is not working with much of anything at all toward putting a Comfey and a Cross Switcher in the Lost Zone. That's now 9 in the Lost Zone, so 1 more and that Lost Mine will be ready and good to go. Tord's hand is massive as well, so I mean, he has so much work to get there. I don't see a switching card in hand necessarily. That might be a small problem in terms of getting that last Lost Zone card in there, but he doesn't really need to worry about that too much considering how well things have gone so far, and actually just attaches an energy to the Comfey to retreat it manually and just get the 10th card in the Lost Zone that way.
Yeah, no, that could absolutely be the way it goes. I mean, Tord, he's got this deck. You know, you don't win a regional with a deck without being really, 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 really good at the deck.
yeah, no question.
So absolutely, this is, you know, we do. Looks like we got that 10 cards in the Lost Zone now. So Sableye is absolutely on board. Now we see Sableye hitting the field with another Comfy, incidentally. Although, like we said in previous games, there's nothing that needs more than 10 cards in the Lost Zone. So at this stage, as soon as Tord hits 10 in the Lost Zone, this is basically the point at where you go, right, I can use Comfy for draw, but I'm not putting in the Lost Zone. But it doesn't look like Tord was actually able to get Sableye in the active there, which is a little bit awkward. It looks like he's passed over to Eric, and Eric's going straight for a double cross switcher. It's going to take out that Sableye.
Yeah, I mean, the Sableye attack was never going to happen that turn because the NG attachment is already committed to retreat into Comfey, right? So you know, the Sableye, sure, it can be put down, but Tord already attached an energy that turn. But Eric able to capitalize that a little bit and, yeah, just go for the double cross switches to rig up and KO it. So now Tord does need to find another Sableye, and has the energy in hand already. But, of course, with the Lost City in play, the Sableye went to the Lost Zone, so Tord actually can't Clara this.
No, and I mean, when I was thinking about, I wasn't necessarily thinking a Sableye attack, you know, even just a Kamerman attack or something like that. Because when there's only one Pokemon out, there's only 10 damage difference between Sableye and Kamerman. So it's not a huge deal either way. I'm just pointing out that Tord, you know, missed that attack.
Yeah.
And it might have been a deliberate thing, might not have needed it. But Eric, you know, as much as I'm sitting here going, oh, he's stuck with that one Palkia, that Palkia's got no damage on. And Lost City is putting in a shift right now.
Yeah, it really, really is. And I went as far as to say, oh, it might be helping Tord a little bit by putting stuff in the Lost Zone. But, of course, stuff in the Lost Zone, like attackers specifically, you can't get back. So it means that Tord is now going to struggle more to get those attackers back with Clara and therefore just struggle to find repeat attackers generally.
I mean, if we look at Tord's deck, there are 6 attackers. We've basically got 3 Sableye, 2 Cramorant, and 1 Radiant Charizard. So, unlike something like a Giratina deck, which is going to be going lighter on Sableye and Cramorant, there are more options here. That's the good part of this. The bad part of this is you've got to find them.
Yes.
And you've got to keep getting them out of the deck. And generally, you know, Clara can recover a Sableye and an Energy, and you're good to go. It's not as easy when these cards are hit in the Lost Zone. You end up, you know, missing another attack. And I think maybe this is Eric's plan here. It doesn't seem on the face of it to be the best plan. I'm just going to go single Palkia and, you know what, I'm just going to try and Lost Zone his attackers. It could be fun, but it's working quite well. Of course, you can't do this forever, because when Radiant Charizard comes on board, it can one-hit KO Palkia, or Palkia's going to get 2-hit KO'd, and it's sooner or later, Eric's going to need to set something up.
And that's not happening anytime soon from what we can see. I mean, also, I think we neglected to specifically mention this at the start, but Eric did have 2 Irida prizes as well. So early setup-wise, it kind of really hindered his odds of like finding much. He was able to find Irida, thankfully, but yeah, I mean, he needs another one now, and it seems unlikely that he's going to hit one. It
really does, unfortunately. That is not where we're getting excited here. So Tord still hasn't actually done any attacking since he KO'd that Sobble in the early game. There's no other attacks coming down. As it stands, there's no Cramorant, there's no Sableye, and I'm sure Tord will be able to find one, but needs to bounce that Lost City. That's doing a lot of bad for Tord right now. And, I mean, I'm looking at Tord's list. There are 3 paths to the peak. So one of them I know has been bounced by the Lost City, but there should be more stadiums in Tord's deck. Have we Lost Zoned any of them?
No, not so I can see.
No, there's one right at the top of the Lost Zone. That is the last one, I think. That is the last path to the peak we see.
Oh, no.
Now, of course, we get to the question of, is Eric playing any more Lost City? And the answer is 1.
1, okay. So Eric's going to want to find that and bump that last path, because, yeah, this is now the last one in play. 1 in the Lost Zone, 1 in the discard, 1 in play. So if Eric can bump this, like, he will have won the Stadium War.
And that's going to be very, very good. I mean, in theory, Tord should have enough attackers to just keep rolling eventually. One interesting thing I see that, now this could go very badly for Tord. I don't think it will, having played the Irida, but he's benched that Charizard with an Energy. If, and it's such a long shot now, but if Eric was actually able to go and gust up that Charizard and find that last Lost City and Lost Zone that Charizard, as it is, we see an Irida coming down, grabbing a Palkia and a Capacious Bucket. Going to go and get some Water Energy, just setting up another Palkia. It would take, I think, probably too much at this stage. But Tord, there was a chance that Tord could have got punished for playing that Charizard.
Yeah, and actually, to Eric's credit, although it seems like not much is going on with his board state, this is kind of, in a unfortunate way, how he needs to play it, because like we were saying at the beginning of the game, if Eric just benches all of his consistency Pokemon, all of them will get KO'd, and yeah, he does kind of need to do it in a sense, but at the same time he can't, because otherwise Tord will just run away with the game. So Eric is just kind of sort of flying by on the edge of his seat, as it were, and just trying to get through with just loading up Palkias and nothing else.
And it's got to be done, you know. If you want to get Sobble on board, you have to bench 3 Sobble, knowing that 2 of them are going to get KO'd by Sableye. You can't use something like Manaphy to save yourself. Sableye's damage counter's not damage, it will go through them.
Yes.
You have to bench 3 Sobble, knowing you're giving up 2 prizes just to try and get 1 evolution into Drizzile. It's not worth it. You literally can't do it. Same thing with Mew. If you bench 1, it's getting KO'd, and there's another 6 damage counters going somewhere else. So are we back over to Tord now? Yeah, we're back over to Tord. We saw another KO from Eric there. And
or is it just a pass from Eric, maybe? But that'd be weird. Did Eric forget to take a prize?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm sure he's taken 3 KOs, unless he didn't attack last turn. But why would he not have attacked?
That's what I'm trying to think, because like...
Unless he's trying to just keep the company in the active.
Oh, possibly, actually, because we do know that Tord has been through a fair few NG already, so maybe that's what it is.
It's a cross-switcher. Now Saberlight comes up with that Psychic Energy on, and we're going to see a lot of damage counters coming down. And honestly, we're going to see at least 3 on each Palkia here, because what you need to do is set it up so that Charizard can get a KO without having to worry about choice bound or anything like that.
Yes.
So we're going to probably see 6 on each or 3 on one, 9 on the other. Either way, Tord is going to set both of these Palkia up to be in Charizard range, because that is the goal. And Eric needs to get a Respond KO with Lost City. I think that's his only hope of pulling out this game.
Yeah, but if he can do that, then he's in a very, very good spot to win, especially if he can like Lost City and then KO the Charizard. I don't think Tord has a really good way of dealing with Radiant. That doesn't really have a good way of dealing with the Palkias after that.
I mean, it would just be Saberlight dropping 12 damage counts or Kamerman doing 110 for the rest of the game. They're the only other really attackers Tord's got in his deck. It is built for Charizard, and Charizard is a much riskier proposition in a world where Lost City is a thing.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, it doesn't. Eric just played a Hisuian Heavy Ball. Will have seen that there's now 2 Iridas in the prize cards, so the 2 that he's played will have to do for now. Don't see anything else to work with, though, unfortunately. There is that Sobble there, but if that gets benched, it will just get KO'd straight away. So he wants to, but he knows he kind of can't, and that's really frustrating.
Yeah, because at the moment, that Palkia's not got enough energy to retreat or attack. Okay, right, fine, it can go and get a stadium. But outside of that, it's not going to do very much in tools, so...
No.
Speaking of which, and that's exactly what we are doing. We are getting the stadium, and it is Lost City, and maybe... I mean, this kind of sells Tord. You've got to get Gusting or you've got to get Escape Rope here. Because if you take a KO with Radiant Charizard, you know that Eric's got Lost City and you know he's got an attacker built up. There's no way Tord's going to just run into that. Tord's too good a player. Yeah. But it is sad when you have to give away to your opponent you've got Lost City. Because Tord knows he's out of path to the peak.
Yes, and maybe that was actually the plan all along. Maybe the whole reason why Tord or Eric didn't want to take the KO is because he wanted to force Tord into using a cross-switcher to bring up the other Palkia so that he could then use Rule the Region to search for the Lost City.
Oh, that would be, I mean, that is a heads-up play and a half, but that would be, I mean, if that's the way it works out, because Tord has been put in a really awkward situation here. Eric has clearly laid out his stall. Hi, I'm using Palkia all game. This is my deal. So if Tord just takes a KO, he knows he's losing Charizard to the Lost Zone because Lost City will go down, the Palkia on the bench will get a KO, Charizard will go to the Lost Zone, and they'll be even on 3 prizes each. So Tord knows he can't do that. So Tord kind of has to gust. But what if Tord doesn't have access to gusting?
No, exactly.
Then what do you do?
It's a very good question.
Oh my goodness, I love Eric's play here. This is such a great example of a player who has not got a good matchup, who is not expected to win, playing very weird and changing their play, and just the way Eric's playing here is absolutely brilliant. We all know at this stage Tord should be winning this game, but Eric is making it so difficult, and I'm enjoying it.
You can almost like see it on like Tord's face, right? He's got like, you know, his head in his hand a little bit. He's really, really struggling to think this through because he recognizes that the board state that Eric has put himself in now is awkward for Tord to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way we've spotted it and Tord hasn't.
No, absolutely not. So, and maybe some clarification about the damage, it looks like. I'm not sure. Lost mine.
I mean, Eric's still not flipped his V-star marker, and I'm sure he used it like many turns ago.
Yeah, he did. I'm sure he knows, but it's still obviously for the sake of keeping everything, you know,
for the sake of clarity.
Yes.
I just want to see it flipped. It's a very small thing, but it would make me happy.
Okay, so and now that's. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure what they're discussing here. There seems to be some sort of like disagreement on the placement of the damage from the lost mine, but it looked like everything was. It looked like everything was fine. And it looks like it has now been resolved.
Lovely. Sounds good to me. So it does look like we are back off. There is the Lost City. And there is the cross switcher. This is huge because now he gets to bring the Charizard up and switch into his power at the same time. And now Charizard's going to the lost zone. And now Eric's basically going, I think my Palkia can run through your single prize Pokemon. And I think my Palkia are too big. Oh, now I don't know how I feel about this play, but we do see the Sobble going down. Charizard goes to the lost zone. And however this game comes out, that was such a great play from Eric.
Unbelievable heads-up play there from Eric. Had the cross switches ready there to go and doing exactly like we said we thought he might be thinking about, right? He obviously had that planned out, and now he's gone for it. And Tord now is in such an awkward position. Like, he just has one Sableye left to attack with, and sure, he can KO the Sobble, but then he's not focusing down on the Palkias, and the Palkia is just going to keep taking, not only going to keep taking prizes towards Pokemon, but anything that's, okay, lost vacuum there.
Oh.
Yeah, that is one way. That's staying to go to the lost zone, yeah.
I think Eric might have been trying to bait him then into attacking with the Sableye so that he could then lost zone the Sableye. Yeah. That would have been amazing. But yeah, as much as Tord doesn't have any counter stadiums, he does, as we mentioned earlier, play 3 copies of Lost Vacuum. Yeah. So, I was enjoying that. Yeah. I was really enjoying that.
I mean, in all fairness, what Tord has going, what Eric has done is still incredibly powerful, because Radiant Charizard is now out of the picture. Sableye can come in and do Lost Mine and rain a bunch of damage counters, sure, but that is not as scary as having something doing 250 damage for 1 energy against you.
The one thing that puts me off slightly here, and, you know, Tord is now taking a single prize, which now means he has to KO those 2 Palkia to win. It would have been quite nice if Eric, and I don't know how possible this even was, but it would have been quite nice if Eric could have forced Tord into having a KO 3 Palkia after KOing that Sobble in the early game, kind of forced Tord into a 7-prize game. But what Eric's done quite nicely here is take 6 damage away from the Palkia, which I really like, because now those Palkia are further away from being KO'd, and now it's basically a question of, can Eric take 3 prizes before Tord knocks out both Palkia? Okay, I know Tord hasn't taken a prize here.
Yeah, there we go.
That was definitely, because we know Tord's taken 2 single prizes.
Yes.
So that's all cleared up nicely now. And I mean, I'm kind of... And Eric doesn't really need anything here, because Eric is just going to attack 1 energy, okay? Yeah. Because Eric is just... And a V-Star. Because Eric is just going to keep attacking and KOing these single prizes and basically saying to Tord, I think I can take 3 KOs and you have got 2 turns to take out these 2 Palkia. I really want Eric to bench another Palkia here, if that's a possibility. He does play a 3-3 line, but I don't know exactly what he's got access to now with the cards in his hand. If Eric could get a 3rd Palkia down, so then potentially be switching between them, but then Sableye can drop damage on the bench. Or
potentially just put down another Sobble, right? Because, again, it's something that Tord can't really afford to not KO, because it's something that Eric can use to search his deck and get his consistency engine going.
I mean, now I love benching a Sobble. Benching a Sobble now is amazing, because Tord is basically on a, I need to KO these 2 Palkia to win. If Eric benches a Sobble and Tord KOs it, Tord still needs to KO both those Palkia to win, and it takes those 6 damage again away from Palkia. But we did see a level ball being played there. Does that mean that Eric just doesn't have access to any... He does play the full 4 Sobble. Does he just not have access to them?
Or maybe he's thinking that at this point it's not worth benching it. Maybe he knows something that we don't. It's maybe he feels that in the current state of things that he'd rather just keep going with this 2 Palkia approach. It's worked very well for him so far, obviously.
And I mean, this is it for Tord. Tord needs to KO these 2 Palkia on the next 2 turns. It is as simple as that. If Tord can KO these 2 Palkia on the next 2 turns, he will win. If he can't, Eric will win. Yeah. Eric does still need the V-Star at some point.
He does, it's true.
I am also struggling to figure out exactly how much that... So the active has got 190, so that can be KO'd this turn. And the bench has got, I want to say, 110?
That looks like a 80 and a 30, so yeah, that is 110.
And then, so that would be 90 on the active, 30 on the bench. That would be 140. I'm not sure Tord's going to do it. So if we run through the maths, because this is really the crux of the game. Tord puts 90 on the active, putting it up to 280, it's KO'd. Yeah. 30 goes on the bench, there's 140 on the bench, 140 remaining. Tord can only drop 12 damage counters. I think if Eric finds a V-Star, I think Eric wins.
Yeah, and that's the key here. Eric needs to find a V-Star. If he does, then he can see that. Then he can close it out and win. if not, then Tord will just about be able to take enough prizes with Sableye. So it all kind of comes down to this here.
Yeah, that is the awkward situation, of course. In a normal game with this Palkia, we wouldn't even be asking the question. There'd be Irida and Drizzile, and it would all be easy. That's not the case here. So, I mean, obviously Tord's got to KO the active Sableye because, the active Palkia with Sableye, because that is going to allow, put Eric in an awkward situation. And then I think Eric, if he's got the V-Star, takes a KO, is out of range, takes a KO and wins. Unless I'm missing something silly, which I might be. I've not been able to pour over these deck lists. We've kind of been busy with the commentating.
And actually, Tord opted to KO the bench Palkia instead, interestingly enough. So put a bunch of damage on there, and then so it would have to have been, I guess, 110 and then 10 on the active.
And that's the better play. Yeah, Tord's got it. We don't got it. That is going to be game one, I believe, for Tord. Of course, you KO the bench Palkia, and then you don't ever need to do that extra damage. So no, Tord proving once again he is a much better player than I am. And takes game one, but that was far closer than it really had any right to be.
Yeah, Eric definitely made the best of a worse situation there. Came up with a game plan that might just well have worked, but Tord doing Tord things and pulling it back the best way he knows how, and it's going up to a 1-0 lead in this game.
And let's be clear, we may have missed that Tord could KO the Palkia on the bench to win the game, but if Eric had found that Palkia V-Star, he would have won that game.
Yes.
That is the only thing that prevented Eric from actually winning that game, was the fact that he wasn't able to get that V-Star, and that's what really opened the door for Tord to win there. Had Tord... There's nothing Tord could have done. There's no choice belt in the deck. It would literally been a case of, had Eric found both his Palkia, then that's it, that's game. And here's the problem with this game plan of Eric, as we saw all the way through that game, you are having to give up your draw. And that means you are going to whiff stuff like Palkia V-Star. And even when you play a game as well as Eric did, you still lose because you whiffed a Palkia.
Yes, and that's just sometimes how it goes. Even you can try your best, but when you're up against someone as skilled as Tord, they just find a way.
Yeah, Tord's pretty good at this game.
Yeah. but so here's the thing. Eric knows that this game plan can work, right? Tord perhaps will be a little bit more aware of it as well, but even then, like you said, perhaps if Eric can pull off that plan again, there isn't that much that Tord can do other than hope that Eric misses.
Yeah, I mean, Eric is playing, I want to say, 2 copies of Lost City. So you've still got to find it at the right time. But I think using Lost City to get rid of key attackers while going full Palkia is the only thing Eric can do. It's really hard to pull off when you don't have access to your draw engine like you would usually have in most games. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. It's awkward. You would love to have access to your draw engine properly. You don't. So all you can do is try and make the best you can of the situation and just kind of hope you draw a little bit better than you have been, because that's the only thing that prevented Eric from winning that last game. And we do need to point out, Eric played phenomenally.
Yeah, he really, really did. And Eric, for what it's worth, has actually had a pretty decent start. Is able to get 2 Sobbles down and a Palkia. No energy, unfortunately, which is the only sad part. But going first, you rest a little bit more easy at, putting down 2 Sobbles so early, because it is, although not impossible for Tord to get 10 in the Lost Zone turn 1, it is extremely unlikely, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, you have to get kind of you have to kind of attach your own tool, play your own stadium, play a couple of Lost Vacuum, get Colrus, get a bunch of Comfy. It is doable, but it is very much unexpected. I think we've also flipped here.
Yes.
We've got the players on the opposite sides of the board, just in case anybody's wondering. So we do see a couple of Comfy there from Tord. We're going to see a bunch of flower selecting. It's going to be fun. And we start off with a Colress's Experiment. Perfect turn 1 to border. You want to get some cards. You want to get some cards in the Lost Zone. And hey, this does both.
Yes, it does. And some interesting choices actually from there. Radiant Charizard, obviously, that's always got to stay. Pass to the Peak, got to stay as well. So now it's a choice between a Psychic Energy, a Manaphy, and a Comfey, and it looks like it's going to be the Manaphy from those, not wanting to fall victim to Radiant Greninja shenanigans.
No, you really don't. Radiant Greninja, we saw in the last game that Eric did not get Radiant Greninja on the board. And Radiant Greninja, if Eric can avoid putting down too many Sobble, Radiant Greninja being a Pokemon which is basic but a decent amount of HP, but also one you really want to go after, that can make things a bit awkward for Tord in terms of which Pokemon Tord has to go after with Sableye.
Yes.
So that can make things a lot more awkward.
Yeah.
As it is, we did see that Eric actually went and benched 2 Sobble pretty early on, and that means that Tord can punish it, but it's early. If Tord doesn't punish it, that's going to be very interesting.
Yes, so one flower selecting played, lost vacuum hitting the lost zone from that, a escape rope into the other Comfey, another flower selecting the echoing horn going into the lost zone, but it looks like Tord is not going to be able to advance much further than there with the lost zone shenanigans, so instead of going to be playing down a pass to the peak, maybe a double cross switcher coming into play just to switch. Oh no, it has a switch card in hand, so Tord could just use that to switch to the Kamerman and take a quick first KO of the game. Yeah,
getting 10 cards in the Lost Zone turn 1, quite difficult. Getting 4 cards in the Lost Zone turn 1, yeah, that ain't that difficult.
No, not at all.
Kamerman takes the KO. I mean, it does mean that Eric is going to have 1 Sobble left that can evolve, which is huge. You're not going to be doing the jumping around that you would usually do. You're probably going to have to evolve straight up into an Inteleon and leave it.
Yes.
Not what you want to do, but needs must, unfortunately. And the path to the peak there from Tord, obviously huge, because there is now Eric can evolve, because it's his second turn. There was always a chance of using Star Portal to get an attack off straight away, and Tord going, yeah, have a counter stadium, which also forces Eric to play Lost City a bit earlier than he wants to, which we all know is a good thing for Tord.
Yes, it absolutely is. So, Irida now for Eric going through to just look for another Palkia. He wants to be able to get that one down so he can start to try and focus in on, there's like multiple Palkia strategy, and other than that, just going to go for a Capacious Bucket. I think one thing that's a little bit unfortunate for Eric is that owing to not being able to get an energy down turn 1, there's not going to be a subspace swell happening at this turn. You really don't want to miss a beat against these single prize decks. You want to be taking 1 prize every single turn, and I don't think that's really going to be happening this game from the looks of it.
Well, not unless you get that counter stadium down, which
yes.
It does not look like Eric's actually got access to at the moment. That's kind of how you got to do it. It's super awkward. We've got the 2 energy in hand. We've got another Palkia hitting the board, but it's not going the way you want yet. We do see another Sobble going down.
Oh.
This is a very different strategy from Eric. It's a lot riskier, but it's awkward, right? Because you see game 1, you went very different. You played very differently. You came so close, but it wasn't enough, and you still lost. So maybe in game 2, you're like, right, well, let's try it a different way. Let's see if we can go for a different strategy. Let's see if instead we can maybe, go for the Sobble route. Maybe we can evolve them up fast enough that Tord can't take advantage with Sableye. And this is the turn. Tord can absolutely go nuts this turn and just, basically KO the Drizzile, put 30 on the Sobble, so even if it evolves, it's going down again. Or he can let Eric have an opening and really start getting some draw going.
Yes. So, Chorus's Experiment now, 5 from the top, and oh, okay, 2 fire energies, so at least one of those are going to have to go to the Lost Zone probably, but that is also probably okay. And yeah, 1 fire, 1 fog crystal going into the Lost Zone from that. Tord hasn't quite, he has got the Radiant Charizard in hand, but given what happened last game, might be a little bit wary of benching it so soon again. He doesn't want to fall victim to another, double cross switcher, Lost City, KO, put the Radiant Zard in the Lost Zone kind of deal. So he'll be bearing that in mind for sure. There's a Fog Crystal as well from the hand to grab what is likely to be another Sableye, and I think at this point he's almost got access to the Lost Mine. I think he needs to do a few more flower selectings, but I'm fairly sure he can get there at least. If not, then maybe he might go for another comfort here. No, just decide to go for the Psychic Energy.
Yeah, not a bad plan at all. Go get that Psychic Energy. Make sure you got that Sableye rolling when you can. I mean, in terms of benching Charizard early, it's a really interesting situation because Charizard's attack costs 1 fire, 4 colorless energy, minus 1 colorless energy for each prize card your opponent's taken. So if they've taken 4 prizes, hey, single fire energy. But if you bench it early and you get a couple of cheeky extra energy attachments, you can end up using Charizard Eternal 2 earlier than you would otherwise be able to. but then you run the risk of your opponent maybe gusting and KOing it, and then kind of round and round we go, I suppose. There's no real right answer. It just depends on what answers your opponent's got in that particular game.
Yeah, and looks like Tord going for the Oranguru ability, just gonna switch a quick ball to the top of the deck and get a random card from the top. And one really cool factor about Oranguru in this deck is that you can essentially use it to guarantee that a card from your hand that you don't want becomes the card that gets lost zone from flower selecting. It's a really, really strong combination when you can essentially guarantee that one of the cards you're lost zoning is one that you don't want anyway.
Yeah, that's always lovely. We've seen so many painful lost zones with Comfy and Chorus's Experiment. It's always nice when you can fix it to not be the one you don't want. That was too many negatives. Either way, we got a Comfy in the active, and it looks like we're going to be selecting just one more flower for the time being.
Yeah.
Have we used a supporter this turn?
I don't think... yes, the Chorus's Experiment lost zoned the Fog Crystal and the Fire Energy.
Yes, of course it did. Okay, so we're up to 8. A Chorus's Experiment will be amazing here, but that is not on the board. So we still need a couple more Comfy. It's doable. It seems like a bit of a long shot at the moment. So Tord needs to think about what's my best play here. I mean, I've kind of got to attack with a Kamerman, and you saw the Kamerman getting benched there. Do I just attack into a Palkia, soften it up for later? Or do we go for, is there any kind of gusting option? It does look like it is just going to be an attack into the active. Unless there's something I'm not seeing. Has Tord got any surprises for us?
A second Manaphy on the bench, it looks like.
That's an interesting one. I kind of like that.
So second Manaphy on the bench, I guess it gets a card out of the hand, but what I'm struggling to, I guess, understand the merit. Maybe is he afraid of a cancelling Cologne play of some kind, maybe?
Not even necessarily. I mean, it could be cancelling Cologne. We do see that a lot, players gusting up the Manaphy and then using cancelling Cologne to take 2 KOs. But also, Tord kind of knows he's in a little bit of a prize race. You don't want to give up 2 prizes in one turn. And the only real way Eric's going to pull that off is with a Greninja. So this stops all kinds of shenanigans. I'm kind of into it, honestly. I'm just having a little bit of a look. There is one cancelling Cologne in Eric's list, so quite possibly is just protecting against cancelling Cologne. There is a longer-term strategy potentially at play, but I think that's a little bit too much for now. It's probably just, you know what? I don't want to be cancelling Cologne, so let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
And now with double Manaphy and Path to the Peak, you're really saying, no Radiant Greninja, no, you won't take a double prize.
Just absolutely guaranteeing that factor, essentially. So yeah, Fog Crystal, going to search for that Psychic Energy. Obviously, going to need that to get an attack off with Sableye, even if that's not going to happen this turn. Could also just maybe use it to retreat again. Of course, we're not quite there with the amount we want in the Lost Zone yet, so the more flower selectings, the better to get you there. But again, it is interesting because Tord is not... We talk about so much this deck being able to get 10 to the Lost Zone like so quickly, but that actually hasn't really happened here in the same way.
No, it really hasn't, and it can, but you've got to get the right kind of draws. Tord hasn't been able to get it, and that is let Eric kind of off the hook a little bit.
Yeah.
It looks, now we've got 9 in the Lost Zone here. Eric has not been able to really take advantage with Inteleons and all of that, and that is really awkward. And I mean, if Tord can kind of finish and pull this off, now we've got 9 in the Lost Zone here. If Tord can pull this off, there's an interesting question of, do you just straight KO the Sableye, or do you go after the Drizzle and put a bit on the Sableye? I think you've got to go Drizzle, though, because otherwise you're potentially giving up an Inteleon, and then that's just so hard to KO. But we do see another flower selecting here from Tord. This is absolutely huge, because now that is number 10, 10 cards in the Lost Zone. Annoyingly, it is actually an escape rope that would have helped to get Sableye in the active. I know, that's a little bit sad, right? But Tord here, we've got energy. Do we have Sableye? And we hadn't seen a supporter card, apparently.
Oh.
Tord just double-checking. There was a double-check there from Tord to make sure he wasn't playing a double supporter. So it turns out didn't even need those last 2 flower selectings. He could have done that all the way along. And now we are golden.
Yeah, because Tord has been able to find a switch out from the Chorus's Experiment, I'm sure, especially given that, say, Air Balloon got sent to the Lost Zone.
And an escape, the escape repel, yeah. So if you get rid of the Air Balloon, you've got a switching. There is a Sableye. I've seen the Psychic Energy, so it does look like Tord has pulled it off. It's already attached to the Sableye. So what? Oh, he's got double cross switcher. Actually, he's got treble cross switcher if you want to be a pedant.
Oh wow, okay. It's pretty strong.
Yeah, it's very strong. I mean, what you can try and do here is strand the Palkia with no energy in the active while you take out the Drizzle and try and go after the Sobble.
And that looks like that's exactly what Todd's about to do. So yeah, double cross switcher. Palkia comes to the active, Sableye comes to the active, and Lost Mine is going to take at least, well, 1 KO for sure, and then set up damage on something else. But I guess now he has to decide whether he thinks it makes more sense to target down this Drizzle for a KO and then put 30 somewhere else, or whether it makes more sense to put 60 on the Sobble and 60 on something else.
I mean, there is merit in taking out the Sobble because it's easier to find a Drizzle than it is to find an Inteleon. So you can potentially gamble on your opponent not having the Inteleon, especially with the engine not rolling as it should be, no Radiant Greninja, etc. And that is what it seems to be like Tord is doing. I'm sure you could go either way here and actually just going, you know what? I'm not getting a KO anyway, so I'm just going to bet that you don't have the Inteleon, and I'm just going to get that Drizzle next turn. And that is put Eric on a 1-turn clock. Now, double cross switcher. We see another one coming in here, but it is just going to be a KO on the Manaphy. It's not perfect. Oh, I do see that Lost City coming down there, so we're going to Lost Zone a Manaphy. And now this guarantees that cancelling clone play can potentially be on board in the future.
Oh, I mean, it would require another double cross switcher though, and unfortunately, one of Eric's cross switchers is in the prize cards.
Oh, and that is high. Generally, they're the last 2 prizes taken. That is awkward. Does he not play any boss's orders?
I don't. Oh, he does play 1, I think. Oh, no, am I looking at the wrong thing? No, that's Tord's list.
No, there is 1 boss's orders in the list, so it can be done with boss's orders.
Okay.
So a boss's orders, and to be fair, and it's a lot to ask, I grant you, but if there is an Inteleon next turn, that could get cancelling clone and boss's orders. We would still need Radiant Greninja. There's so many parts moving here. Eric has got some lines available that are very interesting. Tord, for his part, is doing Tord things. He's using Comfy, flower selecting. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. 1 goes in your hand, 1 goes in the Lost Zone. Lost Zone is irrelevant now. Tord's activated everything he needs to. So he needs a Sableye, he's got it. He needs an energy, he's got it. Path to the Peak comes down, and I believe it does. Is that? No, that's Echoing Horn. I think Tord has the 3rd one in deck.
The Path to the Peak. Yeah, I don't think it's like last game where 1 went to the Lost Zone. I do believe that there are still there's still 1 more available after this one.
This is the awkward thing about playing a really good player in best of 3. Game 1, Eric managed to make it so Lost City could actually do some damage. Game 2, Tord's not losing the Stadium War.
No.
It's like, okay, fine, you got me game 1. You're not getting me game 2.
Yeah, and that's, I think there was actually a chance early on in the game as well where Tord could have Lost Zoned a Stadium and then decided not to because exactly wanted to avoid a repeat situation of game 1.
Oh, Tord has no respect for this Drizzle right now. Goes and KOs the Palkia, but there's a very good reason why you KO the Palkia here. Because the Palkia V on the bench is not evolved. Eric has no attackers, and that is the game. Eric concedes. Tord takes the game 2 games to 0. Ordinarily, I think I would have wanted to go after that Drizzle there, but Tord had the opportunity to take out the only attacker on the board, and once again, Eric unfortunately falls down because just not able to take a KO and not able to get enough Pokemon and energy onto the field. Congratulations to Tord. And right now, I'm going to say it, Freya, I think the rest of the everyone should be scared right now. Because Tord won Peoria Regionals with Lost Box, and Tord is now sitting here at 4-0 with Lost Box. We've got the best player in the world playing a deck with which they are extremely comfortable. And I'm just going to say it right now, Tord has got to be the favourite to take this tournament down.
The 2-peat, you think 2 in a row?
I mean, yeah, quite frankly.
Well, maybe not 2 in a row, because obviously there was Salt Lake in between, but still.
But did Tord even go to Salt Lake?
I'm not sure, actually.
So that might not even count. I mean, basically, if somebody is going to take this tournament away from Tord in his Lost Box deck, they're going to have to show me they're able to do so. Because right now, all I'm seeing, and the play in that game is just... I've commentated so many Tord games. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of streams in a lot of different places. I have commentated Tord all over the world at this stage. And I just adore watching Tord play. There were several lines in that game where I was like, he could do this. And Tord's like, no, here's a better play.
Well, as the old saying goes, that's why he's up there and we're here, right?
I mean, Tord is really on another level. I mean, like we said before the game, I honestly don't believe... I think if you're looking at the best player of all time, there is a real conversation, and I'm still giving the edge to someone who won Worlds 3 times. If you're talking about the best player right now or the best player of the 10 years, I honestly think it is Tord, and then I think we're having a conversation for the second best player. And there are many phenomenal players in this game, but I really do believe that Tord is just on another level in terms of playing, and it's got to be pointed out, you know how much Tord tests, right?
A yes amount, from what I understand. Like,
I'm not sure, and I don't know, you know, so I'm not saying this is a fact. There cannot be many people, if anyone, that test as much as Tord tests.
No, almost
This is
not.
it for Tord.
Yeah.
Tord tests the Pokemon TCG. That's what Tord does.
Yes, and it's paid off very, very well for him, as it's very evident to see.
Yeah, I mean, it is just phenomenal play all the way around from Tord. Just another absolute masterclass. And it's little things. In a Lost Box, we heard a lot coming in, and it's a very fair point to make. This is not an easy deck to play. Lost Box, there's lots of micro decision-making, lots of putting the damage counters. And, you know, we saw several opportunities in that game. There were other lines that Tord could have gone that looked perfectly acceptable. But it was little things here and there which really make the difference and make Tord that gosh darn good.
And that is exactly, even in a back-to-the-wall situation where someone new has come up against him and presented him with a strategy that may actually be able to like put a dent in the works and maybe defeat him, Tord was still able to win.
Yeah, and Eric came so close that game one. All he needed was that Palkia V-Star. But when you're kind of forced into a game where you can't use your draw engine, that just makes everything so much different. It makes the game such a different proposition, and that's the awkward thing. Now you're not playing Mew. We did see Eric in that second game really try and get that Sobble engine, but even then, even when you're playing the Sobble, Eric's deck was not cooperating, never really ran properly. Game one was quite close. Game two, it never really felt like Tord was in any danger.
No, not really at any point. Well, maybe that sort of game one end scenario, it looked like it was in a bit of danger.
Oh, game one, absolutely. Yeah. I'm talking game two.
Yeah, game two, not at all, no.
It really did seem like Tord was just in control. And it's little things, you know, one thing we pointed out, Tord really prioritized the path to the peak in game two in a way he didn't in game one. And it's because he ran out of path to the peak in game one, and that ended up being an issue. That ended up being something which, you know, yes, obviously you've got lost vacuum, but you don't want a lost vacuum.
No, of course. The bane of decks like these single prize attacking decks is, especially when you're one-off attacker like Charizard, it's taken out of play completely because, I mean, sure, Sableye being lost is one thing, but when your Radiant Charizard is gone from that, it's gone, so you can't really have your finisher then.
No, when you have no Radiant Charizard, things get very, very, very awkward indeed. You can't finish out the game, and that's a little bit awkward. But Tord was able to finish out the game. We have finished up now, so we're going to take a little bit of a break. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, we have got so much more Pokemon, and it's going to be awesome. I saw Rolly making a timeout gesture. Oh, we went back on. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Lille Regional Championships. We're in France. We're having a wonderful time. My name's Ross Gilbert, and I'm joined again by the lovely Benji Hutchings. How you doing, Benji?
I am doing great. I've just had a lovely little break, sit down, had a scout of the decks again, seeing what's floating to the top, what's falling to the bottom, and a lot has changed.
What's changed? Tell me what's changed. I've been sitting here. I didn't see it.
Well, our previous assumptions as Zoroark, they've all fallen. There are not many left on the top tables at all. We've got some who've lost one game, maybe drawn one game, but there's none on the top, 3 or 4 tables up there. But I can tell you what is there, and that's Arceus Gudra once again.
Really?
Once again, it is floating straight to the top, proving its worth. Arceus, as we discussed, one of the strongest cards in the game, and Gudra, straight off the back of a regional win, coming to the top.
Wow, we can talk more about that after the game. We are going now. We've got Owyn, Kamerman, and Vinnie, Schelfhaut, again, apologies for any mispronunciations on our part here. And Owyn is off, and of course we wanted him here because we have, as it stands at the moment, and it's early in the season, but as it goes at the moment by rankings, #1 player in the world by a bit of a margin. So I'm sorry, when I see the #1 player in the world right now looking at the rankings, and they're 3-0, I want to get them on stream.
Of course, it is definitely a highlight reel moment, isn't it? That's a screenshot you send to your parents and your friends. Top in the world right now. Not in his region, not in his city, everywhere.
And I know I was #1 in the world because I saw it coming across my social media, posted by Owyn himself. So that is how I saw it. And believe me, if I was #1 in the world, I would be boasting about it too. So we've started off with a Radiant Greninja sitting there in the active, and it does look like we've got a Battle VIP past turn 1, which is amazing. Very different proposition to the previous game. In the previous game, though, Sobble were terrified of Sableye, but it does not look like that's what we're rolling with very much here. We're less worried about Sableye, and right now, Owyn's just going, right, let's get my engine rolling. We got a Palkia, we got 2 Sobble, we got an energy attachment. Like, what more do you want?
I don't think there's much more that he needs, definitely. I think that going back to our round 3 game, we showed the worth of Sobble, Drizzile, and Inteleon, all of them grabbing exactly what you need at key moments, helping Palkia run along and be one of the most dominant decks in the format.
Absolutely. Now, we do have the deck list. They have come through. So Owyn is playing the Palkia, as you can see. And Vinnie is actually rolling with an Arceus Giratina deck. There is no Sableye, nothing to be worried about there. We've got Bieber, Rel, and Crobat, and Drapion, and Pumpkaboo, and a 1-1 Espeon line. We've got a weird list here. There's lots of 1s on the Pokemon line. And Radiant Gardevoir as your Radiant Pokemon of choice. So that's going to make the maths a bit awkward for us.
Yeah, definitely. I think we discussed earlier that Palkia, one of its hindrances is being able to hit those damage caps. They're relying on their opponent benching a lot, and that Gardevoir is going to make that a little bit more difficult as well, especially with the Giratina being able to come back in and take those big one-shots.
Well, Gardevoir's weird, because Gardevoir adds 20 for Palkia's attack and then minuses 20 for its own ability, and it's kind of like it ends up as a bit of a stalemate. Tell you what, though, Vinnie did not want to start Espeon here. Espeon, great counter against damage counters. Sableye, really, that's what we're all thinking. It's not going to be that good in this particular matchup, so not one you really wanted to start with. That's going to be sitting out there. We do see an Arceus, and is that a double turbo energy?
It's a capture energy.
It's a capture energy. That is not what you want, because that means there's going to be no energy acceleration turn 1.
Of course not, but I do think that the capture energy is one of the better. It's better than a basic energy, should we say, because at least it lets him to get down either another Arceus that we see here, or maybe another attacker for him to keep down the board, just in case that Palkia gets a little bit too speedy, gets herself in the active for an early knockout. Yeah,
I mean, the worst case scenario here would be Owyn kind of getting all set up, getting the energy, and then playing an escape rope to force the only bench Pokemon into the active, and then KOing that Arceus, and that would have been terrible. So Owyn had a very, very good start. Vinnie, I'm going to be honest with you, has not had a great start here. It's not going anywhere near as well as we would want. It's not terrible, but if you go second and you don't get that turn 1 attack, it's not great.
I think as well, he's lacking an attacker as well. I know that Arceus can obviously breed into another Arceus and you can get more energy on the board as well, but against this Palkia, you really want to threaten that one shot into it with that Giratina that he plays. So missing that turn 1, and as you say, obviously not getting the energy down and really sort of setting up an answer to the questions that Owyn's asking right now. It will probably come back to bite Vinnie later on down the line.
Yeah, it's not ideal by any stretch. We do see an Irida coming down here, and stop me if you've heard this one before. Palkia V-Star and Capacious Bucket for 2 water energy. We see that all the time with Irida. That is what it gets. And you know what? We're setting up for a nice attack. All we need is a switch here, and we're going to see a big attack into that Espeon. Owyn's deck is just cooperating right now. We even see a discard of 1 energy with Radiant Greninja, but that's good because you draw cards, and you kind of want water energy in the discard.
Of course, yeah, it really sets up that the really nice synergy with Melanie, obviously attaching an energy from this card, drawing 3 more cards for Owyn, and of course, he's got those Drizziles. He can still play this turn if he has access to them in order to get whatever trainer cards he wants out of his deck and push this game state forward. But right now, it looks like he's scouting through his hand, just trying to find a way to maybe position this Palkia into the active draw, and the Drizzile does come down, which means he can get any trainer now from his deck. Ross, how important is that?
Oh, it's really, really important. You can go and get any trainer you like. You can get a switch if you need it. You can go and get yourself some energy with Capacious Bucket. And we're going to see here, this is going to be very, very different to the other round 4 game we just showed. In the other round 4 game, we did not see Drizzle and Inteleon doing their thing. Here, we absolutely are going to see it, and I love it so much because it means that you can cherry pick anything you want from your deck. And we've seen, since Drizzle really came around, we've seen decks being built in a different way. People will play random one-offs, you know, things like Clara and Avery and Roxanne that you really don't want in the early game. You can just literally play one of them and just cherry pick them as you like. Also worth pointing out, this is another Palkia that's not playing any Kyurem VMAX.
No, yeah, we're yet to see Kyurem so far. Definitely one of the more popular decks in the format. However, I can see a really nice newcomer to the deck in that Abominable V. Gudra's success on the weekend, obviously scaring a lot of the Palkia players. They want something that can hit nasty, hit hard, and the Abominable V can do just that.
Yeah, also a nice counter to your Mewtwo V Union, and actually I did see one of them at 2-0 earlier, so there is definitely one in the field that is doing okay.
Definitely, that Abominable. Lots of many uses. A big, chunky 4 retreat cost. I'm sure Owyn would never like to start it, but of course has its uses in the deck, and we see it now be loaded up with that Star Portal, attacked with a big charm, and Palkia swings for the first knockout of the game, and Owyn goes 2 prizes up.
Yeah, there's something beautiful about getting a KO with one Pokemon, while at the same time being able to set up your backup attacker on the bench. It's just brilliant. I love it so much. It's setting you up for future turns, and you see that, you know, Owyn's got 2 attackers basically set up, and Vinnie's like, hey, maybe I accelerate some energy with Arceus. And the thing is, we didn't see a double turbo, it's a grass energy, so we know it is going to be Arceus V, which is probably giving up another 2 prizes. This could be it's Arceus V Star.
So the Raihan attached the grass from the discard, so he still does have...
I forgot, I did not see that Raihan. All right, so now we are rolling, and of course you can always use that V Star Power Star Portal to go and grab any 2 cards. My apologies for missing the Raihan. Now we are good. It's not going to get a KO, but at least it's going to get some decent damage on the field.
Of course, I think Vinnie's plan A right now is to sort of establish himself in the game, see if he can do some damage control, manage his board a little bit there, maybe get a Giratina down, some other options, and start loading the energies down. Because if he doesn't this turn, I do think the Palkia grabs the game by 2 horns and starts running away with it. But now, obviously, with Starbith, he can grab any 2 cards he likes. I'm sure he'll pick the right ones and position himself correctly.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a nice little play. Decks we see sometimes double cross switcher coming out. I don't think that's really what you want here, but it's always nice to have that little bit of an option after having used a supporter. Here, we're very much in setup mode. The question for Vinnie, does he want a Giratina? Is he going to be rolling with Arceus for a while? Because now is the time to do it. You're about to accelerate a bunch of energy. You're drawing any 2 cards. This is basically where you are setting up for whatever you want to go forward with the game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think here... Vinnie is a little bit cautious of that Abominable. Obviously, the Arceus got a little bit of damage already, and we know Abominable does more damage for the damage on the opponent's active Pokemon, which is not something we see all that often. No. But the Abominable has the ability to really swing hard on this Arceus here, so Vinnie has to sort of position it in a way that he can load up this Giratina and hope that it's not a one-shot next turn. Keeping his bench nice and small, hopefully the Arceus can survive.
That's the plan. You do see there is 1 Giratina down and an Arceus. Do you go all the energy on Giratina? Do you split a bit on the Arceus? That's the decision for Vinnie right now. We are splitting.
That nice split. I think the split is very safe. I think Vinnie knows he's on the back foot. He needs to, as I said, he needs to stop the boat from rocking right now. He needs to make sure he's got the most options as possible to take the game forward. He knows that it's a high possibility that Owyn can take a knockout on this Arceus next turn. And then he has more than one option the following turn. He can go with Arceus, set up some more things, or take a big hefty knockout with a Giratina.
Yeah, always a fun plan. You know, Giratina needs 1 energy to hit for 280. Arceus needs a double turbo. So, yeah, we're in a pretty good position, quite frankly. So, yeah, I'm liking where Owyn's coming here. I think Vinnie's done a pretty good idea here. I like that he's setting up the 2 different Pokemon. And it's setting up nicely for the future, but you've got to think Owyn here is very much on the front foot.
Yeah, I think that he's definitely had a dominant turn 1. He's got all the Pokemon that he wants to see down. He's got that Inteleon now, grabbing any 2 trainers from the deck. He's also got that Bear Sobble down there, so it means that he activates himself with another Scoop Up Net, meaning he can play another Drizzle this turn, reset another Sobble, allowing him to move forward on following turns and continue to grab these items. As we see the cross switcher you mentioned earlier, What a card, incredible. It acts as boss, one of the most powerful cards in the game, but you can still play a supporter that turn as well.
Yeah, gusting when you can play a supporter as well is absolutely just brilliant. So we do see that double cross switcher. Arceus couldn't do it, but oh my goodness, Palkia can. Grabbing up that Giratina, which is obviously the bigger threat. That can get a one-hit KO on a Palkia, but Arceus cannot. And now we're bringing up that, and this is, yeah, this is good. It's not been able to V-Star yet, so are we getting a KO? Are we there yet?
I think we are now.
Yeah,
that band.
That was a very confident choice belt going down.
Yeah, we are at 230 damage with the band, so I think we are able to knock out that Giratina. I think as well, the important thing to note is that Owyn didn't actually have to stretch that far that turn. With the scoop up net, he was able to just bounce that Inteleon back out the active. That's now in hand. The Drizzile's posed and ready there for the next turn for him to drop that again. He's really set himself up for the rest of the game as well as taking a knockout this turn.
Yeah, Palkia does 60 base plus 20 more for each bench Pokemon from both players. 7 bench Pokemon, 140. Add the 60 base is 200. That choice belt puts it up to 230. So we are now at 230, which is just over what we need. That choice belt coming in absolutely huge. And this is just putting Vinnie very much on the back foot. Because that Giratina could have evolved up, V-Star up, get an energy, boom, one-hit KO on Palkia, job's a good one. Now we don't have that anymore. How much is on the Palkia, though? So we can get a return KO, but then I feel confident that Owyn's going to have some tricks coming on.
Yeah, I imagine Owyn's got a few options. We do, however, see a position where the Crabominal is on the bench.
Yes.
And Arceus has currently only got 10 damage on it, which means that Crabominal is not one-shotting our Arceus at this point.
No,
there's no Palkias on the bench. Which means that perhaps if this Palkia goes down, Owyn might find himself in a position where he needs to try and ramp up that damage on the Arceus before being able to close out the game.
Yeah, that is absolutely a good point. Crabominable does 90 base plus 60 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active. And it's a bit of a shame that the other Inteleon completely fell. No, he does play the other Inteleon. So there is a possibility of using the Chilling Reign Inteleon to put 2 more damage counters onto Arceus, and then we would be doing 270 plus the 30 on there. That would actually do it. So if there is an Inteleon, Crabominable's got this.
He has got this in the bag, and wow, would I love to see that. A card that has not yet made its place in this format, but there were murmurs, there were secrets, there were people talking about it before coming, and I think we might just see him star in this show right now. But Vinnie just manied. He put Owyn's hand back down. Owyn had the Inteleon in his hand. He was able to get himself the answers at that point. But has he lost them? We'll have to find out.
And the thing about Marnie, and this is very, very important to note, especially for newer players, Marnie doesn't shuffle your hand into your deck. Marnie shuffles your hand and puts it at the bottom of your deck. So that means that if you had something in your hand that you wanted, you know you're not going to have it after the Marnie unless you've got fewer than 5 cards in hand. 4 for the Marnie, 1 for your draw the following turn. So that means that if the Inteleon was in hand, Owyn's not getting it off the Marnie. You will need to grab some kind of Pokemon search option to go and grab it. So the path to victory, and Owyn's only got 2 prizes left. The path to victory is clear. Do we have an Inteleon? If we do, that's game.
Yeah, Vinnie there not finding all the things he needed. He shook his head at the Crobat, disappointed with his turn there, but able to take the knockout. So he does put himself down to 4 prizes, but as we said, and Irida,
oh, there's an Irida. That's going to get a water Pokemon. That water Pokemon is going to be that Inteleon. And then we're going to see 2 damage counters coming down and a gigantic Destroyer Punch. Shout out for a brilliant attack name.
Brilliant.
And that is going to take out the Arceus. And the last 2 prizes. And Owyn Kamerman takes game 1. I love that end game. That is a beautiful way to end the game.
I mean, symbolised as well by the fist bump as well. A nice Destroyer Punch. A much lighter one, I imagine, the Crabominal just laid on that Arceus. However, great. I'm really happy to see that. A new card showing its face in the format. May not be the prettiest of faces on Crabominable, but definitely a pretty performance.
I love this because Crabominable is one of these cards where we all looked at it and we were like, yeah, that's too expensive. And it was. Like when Crabominable came out, it was a terrible card. In Fusion Strike, nobody cared. And then we saw these V-Union cards like Mewtwo becoming quite good. And actually, that first attack, Trigger Avalanche, that discards a card from 2 cards, from the top of your opponent's deck, actually a good counter to Mewtwo V-Union. But now, because you've got that Star Portal on Palkia that can accelerate energy, you can use Palkia to get Crabominable going. And the Chilling Reign Inteleon was huge at one point, completely fell out of favour, and we saw then just 1 copy of that. That was enough.
What a redemption story. I mean, the Inteleons have been battling each other for the limelight spot. Obviously, Shady Dealings proving worth. We see it far more often, but the Chilling Rain one, I think definitely making a claim to be the favorite Inteleon there for Owyn. Really strong end of the finish of the game. And I really like that combination as well. I feel like it can be used in more positions than we just saw. And as you said, that trigger avalanche attack as well on the top, being able to discard some cards from your opponent's deck. Good against Mewtwo, but hey, there may be other situations that comes in handy as well.
I love having emergency attacks. Kind of like, if you ever end up in a situation where your opponent's just got two cards left in deck, you're like, trigger avalanche, and then you just deck out and lose. Doesn't happen often, but I bet you in testing it happens once or twice, and it's always going to feel good.
I think my favourite ever must have been the stomp off with the Trubbish. Do you remember that? Oh, wow, that was a favourite of mine, definitely. Discard one card, that. Half as good, but paid off.
Oh, it's always fun when it works. So we are heading into game 2 now. Vinnie is the 1 game down. We have a look at the prizes coming down. Vinnie's prize is 1-1 SP Online. That's amazing.
That's amazing for him. If he could have picked his prizes, I'm sure they would have been in there at some point. A great, great prize. But the 1 Inteleon, 2 Sobble for Owyn.
Yeah, the 2 Sobble prize for Owyn is, that's not good here at all.
It's not good. The only thing is, he luckily does have an Irida in hand, which means he can get the VIP pass, which means he's not relying so much on drawing into the Sobbles. He can hand-pick them. He does play the full 4 copies, so he is able to just go straight into his deck and grab that if he so wishes, put them down, and he's still going to have enough of an engine here to carry on going. But it looks like Vinnie's just... Oh, he's picking up his prizes, played Hizui and Heaverball, just looking at that. And if he has a basic Pokemon, he can switch a card in his hand with that. But of course, as we said, he's going to leave the Espeon in there. Better in there than in his hand or on his bench, I imagine.
And sneaky important that one of Galarian's Zigzagoon is prized, and 1 Inteleon only drops 2 damage counters, which means Abominable would be doing a total of 260, I believe, or 270, sorry. But that, no, it is 260. Wait, 120, 230, there we go. It's not enough, is my point. It doesn't KO V-Stars. So I'm actually kind of worried about that Galarian Zigzagoon being prized.
Right at the top as well. It's unlikely he's going to see that this game.
Regardless, we need to look at what Vinnie's doing. Vinnie's going and getting a Giratina, and there is an Arceus, and there is a double Turbo Energy, and there's a Bidoof.
A round of applause this game. It's gone the way it's supposed to this game. As we mentioned a number of times today, but I think it's really important to always mention when it comes to Arceus, you don't need a lot on your first turn, but it's essential you get the things you need to have a good game.
Yeah, it is. It's also essential to take a bit of time when you're trying to do maths on the fly. But I took a bit of time then. It is 2:30. I feel good about myself for that. You called the Irida for the VIP pass, and you've called it absolutely correct. We saw that get straight to the front, and we got a Radiant Greninja. Oh, no. Is he going Radiant Greninja Capacious Bucket? No, I think we're counting prizes here. You've got to go turn 1 Battle VIP pass. You've got to.
It seems definitely... I'd say that VIP pass was definitely something that we'd see more commonly, but maybe Owyn has something in mind here. Maybe going for the Greninja earlier on in the game, maybe setting up some damage on the Arceus Giratina to try and get through it. We have discussed before that Palkia doesn't quite have that punching power that Giratina has, so soften it up may be a good idea, but he isn't going to be able to do that until maybe his second turn when he's got a V-Star to set up that Greninja.
And do remember, we can't see Owyn's hand right now. There is an absolute chance that he knows stuff we don't. Usually it's turn 1. Turn 1 is when you're begging for that Battle VIP pass, but gets a Greninja there with a couple of energy. And of course, Greninja's not just drawing cards for you, it's also getting energy in the discard, setting up things like Melanie, like Palkia's V-Star power, just to get that energy off, have those explosive turns with Crabominable or Radiant Greninja. So what do we see? Are there any more basics? There's at least a Palkia.
At least a Palkia. We see the Drizzle and the Water Energy come off the concealed cards. As you said, the concealed card's never a bad thing to do. It gets the water in the discard, so he's going to reactivate that Greninja, use it again, and draw more. Another Scuba. He can do it a 3rd time if he wants. See those 5th and 6th cards, but pushing the Palkia to the front of his hand. Perhaps going to see that come down now this turn. But a much slower turn this time round from Owyn. Do you think that's going to have an effect on the overall game?
I think it could end up being a little bit of a pain as we go through. I mean, I don't like not having a Sobble. Now, we do have a Quick Ball, and I suppose this is what Owyn was thinking here. Just a case of, you know what, I can use Quick Ball to get a Sobble. I've got my Palkia anyway. Let's just go a little bit more conservative. I don't need to go millions of Sobbles, but actually, sometimes getting many, many Sobble can be good. Wait, have we got... No, so dropping a Drizzle, getting 1 Sobble, that's fine, but it's not
There is a second quick ball in his hand.
Oh, there is a second quick ball.
But I'm looking at his hand, and I'm sort of thinking that all the cards are really valuable for next turn now. He's got a Drizzile, he's got a couple of other cards in there. He's got the energy to draw a Greninja again. Obviously, he wants an energy to perhaps attach to the Palkia, so he's not reliant on Melanie or Starport on next turn. So I'm kind of thinking whether he's going to use that or not, but we are definitely going to see one Sobble this turn at the very minimum.
Are we really?
Well, I'll eat my hat.
It looks like we're going double Palkia here. This is an interesting one. It does look like there is another quick ball coming, and we're seeing some painful discards. We've already seen a Drizzile go down. Now it looks like we're seeing a scoop up net hit the bench discard pile as well. None of this is really what you want to do.
Well, I mean, we have seen a minimum of one Sobble now, so I'm happy that at least that has not made me look the way it just did. But there we go. The Sobble does come down now. So he has got that Drizzile in hand, so he's going to be able to at least grab one trainer next turn, handpick that depending on what Vinnie's turn makes him need. But Vinnie now drawing for turn. He needs to move this bid off out of the active, but of course he needs that Arceus, V-Star and Starbirth this turn.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. And we start off with a Marnie here, so Vinnie doesn't actually have it in hand right now. He's going to try and draw whatever he needs off of this Marnie. So, you know, 5 new cards. And when we talked about it earlier, if you've got a card in your hand you want, you're not getting it with Marnie. Well, actually, if you don't have the cards you want in hand, then Marnie becomes much better because you know you're not drawing into the cards you don't want. That increases the odds of drawing into the ones that you do want.
Definitely, and I think that was one of like the key points of Marnie perhaps over a Shauna back in the day. Of course, obviously drawing 5 is always great, but the fact that you not only that you give your opponent 4 cards, but meaning that you have absolutely no possibility of drawing into the same cards again, unless you play obviously multiples of them. It makes the card that much more consistent of maybe being used as your own draw supporter as well as disruption.
Yeah, it's always a nice bonus when you can get both of them going at the same time. So Vinnie here, he's got himself an Arceus with an energy. He's got himself a Giratina. We've not seen it. Ah, there we go. So there's the Arceus V-Star. Just about, and there's a Giratina V-Star.
Both coming down at once.
And we have to flip the V-Star marker because as it stands, that poor Bidoof is just stuck in the active. I mean, is there a merit here to maybe going and getting a switch and a Bibarel, and then you've got your draw engine? I never love getting a draw engine off of your V-Star because you can search at anything you like, but it's gonna, because you're kind of swapping a card you want for random cards, but it's random cards every turn.
Yeah, of course. I think that obviously, as you said, it's got some merit to get that Bibarel down to get some
Oh, but
cards
he
in
needs
your
an
hand,
energy
but
for
he
the
needs an
Arceus as
energy.
well.
Of course, he needs an energy, and I think that's going to be definitely one of the picks that we see, and perhaps we see another card. But I think unless the switch is in hand, it's going to be energy switch here.
Could well be energy and switch, as opposed to
and the Bibarel's
energy
there.
switch. There's a Bibarel. Oh, he had
the
all of
switch,
it. There we
had
go.
all of it.
There were 3 cards he needed. One was it. We have no idea which was in his hand and which got grabbed. Really doesn't matter. Oh, and that's an interesting one. Collapse Stadium comes down. Have fun having a bench space of 4, not 5.
You know, I actually think this is a great play by Vinnie here. If Owyn isn't able to find a counter stadium, he's locked into that one Sobble for now. So it means that actually it could end up hurting him if he didn't go into the deck and get those. He clearly had an alternative game plan that he was going for in this game, which I think was going all green lights until now. However, Vinnie's put down a stadium that's going to maybe cause him some problems unless he can find a counter.
I mean, on the upside, if Owyn had gone and gotten both of the, if he'd gone and gotten 2 Sobble Aston, one of them would just have been lost without evolving. So there's actually kind of like a small win there. But, you know, you've got Manaphy on the field. And there isn't really, is there anything in Vinnie's deck which is really threatening the bench like that?
I don't
Giratina and Arceus don't really hit the bench. So it's not, you know, you've only got 4 bench spaces rather than 5. And then you've got that Manaphy that really isn't doing you very much good. I'm liking how Vinnie's setting this up here. Nobody's taken a prize yet. Vinnie's going to take the first one off that Manaphy. So I suppose the Manaphy becomes a moot point. But you're taking a prize, you're going up, and now you're going to be accelerating energy. And we're probably going to see a split like we've seen in the past. 2 on the Giratina, 1 on the Arceus. And this is giving Vinnie great options for the future.
Yeah, I think this is a much more common Arceus turn that we're so used to seeing. We talked earlier that it does all the right things, Arceus. It draws you cards, it places your energy, and can really move a lot of cards, both niche and popular, forward. So I think that Vinnie here showing its strength, setting up the way that it should, getting another Arceus out for that energy acceleration late in the game, and setting up his main attacker in Giratina, ready for those big one-hit KOs on those Palkia V-Stars. Yeah,
I love this. And I actually really like where Vinnie's kind of set up here because, oh, I'm against a Palkia. Yay, Giratina smashes for one-hit KO. Oh, you've got your single prize Pokemon. Well, Arceus can take them out while accelerating energy. If you're against decks that's only got big Pokemon, it can be hard to find that opportunity to use Arceus and, you know, refill the energy on your board if you start running a bit low. But there's opportunities for Vinnie all over the board here, and I like how this game's shaping up. Owyn here, you need to get something rolling. I mean, it starts probably with Drizzile, but you do have Radiant Greninja there. You need a V-Star, you need an energy, there's a lot you need, and you're probably not KOing this Arceus this turn.
No, I don't think you are, especially not with the Collapse, unless he's able to find a way to bump Collapse, get 2 full benches, which I don't think you can do. Obviously, Vinnie's not going to put anything down, and Horn wouldn't get it up to the maximum, and a Band. So I think this Arceus is going to survive for now. But I think the bigger thing at Vinnie's mind right now is he's got an Irida in hand, but he's also got a boss. So he just needs to figure out here whether he's going to go in with the Irida, get himself that V-Star and set up a couple of different plays. And he is going to, in fact, do that. I think here it'd be really nice to do that, what we mentioned earlier, with that Greninja, maybe Star Portaling, maybe softening up those Arceuses so that Palkia is able to attack a lot more efficiently into it and the Giratina.
Yeah. It's always nice when you get some nice efficient attacks going on. It's personal. I'm a fan of it, I'll be honest with you. I like it when that happens. So the Irida is being resolved here. There we go. And it looks like we've got a Hisuian Heavy Ball. Of course, we know that the Drizzile and the Zigzagoon and 2 Sobble are in the prize cards here. So there's many different options there. Owyn's definitely got his sights set on one of them. And then we got the Palkia V-Star. And you can get the energy with a V-Star power if you need to. So this is starting to work out quite nicely.
Yeah, I think with that heavy ball, Owyn obviously realizing he's got a small amount of Sobble and or thinks that he's able to stretch out here and get that knockout with that Zigzagoon ping as well. We're just going to see what he takes here. Having a look. Of course, Hisuian and Heavy Ball also giving you the knowledge you need of any other things that are prized as well as those basic Pokemon, so you can map your prizes out a little bit better. Although they're shuffled, you know what's in there and you know what you need.
Yeah.
And he does opt for that Sobble, filling up that bench again, up to the maximum of his 4 at the minute due to that Collapse Stadium.
Yeah, Collapse Stadium's really doing a number here. But we've got a couple of Sobble down. And, you know, Owyn really just needs to try and get a couple of prizes early doors. Just get a couple of KOs, because when you need that one big KO, that's where Crabominable is going to come and have your back. But you need to get a couple KOs in the meantime. I mean, one of the things I love about Palkia is how good it is at getting KOs on Pokemon V in the early game. It is the master of taking out Pokemon V. It struggles with V-Star. So what would be amazing here is if we could see some kind, you know, we've seen a supporter with Irida, but if we could maybe see a cross-switcher to take out the Arceus V on the bench, just get some prizes on the board, or else it's going to be decent damage on the Arceus, but no actual prizes being taken, and Vinnie's going to, whatever you attack with, Vinnie can deal with, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think definitely, especially with that Giratina lurking there in the shadows. He's sort of looking here with that Drizzile. It looked like at first he was going for the Melanie, and he did opt to go for it. Maybe trying to draw that extra 3 cards, trying to get a cross switcher, perhaps to get the Greninja out of the active as well as getting the energy at the same time. For his V-Star, dropping the Palkia, and he does V-Star.
Okay, so now we got the energy coming out. Does he have all of them in there? Yes. Oh, we're all onto Radiant Greninja. I kind of love this, especially when we know that Crabominable is potentially waiting in the back, although using a V-Star power makes it much harder to use Crabominable, which is a bit of a pain, but certainly getting a bunch of damage on the board on a bunch of different Pokemon. And actually, Palkia can't one-hit KO V-Stars. But you go put 90 on a couple of them, and Palkia's like, yeah, that's cool.
That's cool. That helps me quite a lot. Yeah, I think it really highlights exactly what you just said and said previously, that Palkia is the master not only of space, but of taking knockouts on the Pokemon. And those V-Stars do just get a little bit too high in HP for it, so that Greninja really nicely setting them up. The Palkia should have no problem whatsoever now getting the key knockouts, especially on that Giratina that can put up a really good fight and KO it back.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Owyn's board here. You're going to be able to get a KO on that Radiant Greninja while accelerating a bit of energy. Now, it depends how many more attackers he wants, how much more energy is even left in the deck at this stage, because quite a lot's come out. But I love being able to take that KO. And essentially what you're going to do, you're going to go up by 2 prizes, accelerate a bunch of energy, then your Arceus is going to go down to a Palkia, but then you're still going to be in a decent position, and I love this. An undamaged Giratina, it's got to be the play.
It's got to be the play. I think Vinnie, again, proving that he's staying calm. He's got this in the bag. I think Arceus sort of came out of the blocks quite quickly, had the perfect turn 1, sort of a really good turn 2, and now the Giratina's coming down. He's putting multiple threats on board. Arceus able to accelerate again, exactly as we said, without worry that Arceus is going nowhere this turn, able to get 3 more energy down. And look, now he's, by the end of this turn, 4 different Pokemon he can attack with. Yeah,
and he's basically saying, oh, you've used Radiant Greninja to set up 2 of my V-Stars to be KO'd by Palkia. Wouldn't it be annoying if I had those same V-Stars but they didn't have any damage on to begin with? That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think Vinnie doing absolutely the correct thing. There's 1 card left there that he didn't pick up, so I hope he notices that, just in case he thinks he's out of energy and there's 1 there. But at the very least, those 2 energy hitting the Giratina, so both of them ready to be activated with just 1 more attachment, and both of the Arceuses ready to swing.
Yeah, I love this. I love the fact that he's setting up so many different attackers, so many different Pokemon, and he's really kind of countering what Owyn's trying to do here. Owyn's gone, right, I'm now going to roll with Palkia, and Vinnie's like, well, you know, maybe you're not, honestly.
Maybe you're not. And so we see the Melanie come down in the turn and actually attaching to the bench Palkia. We know that Owyn's got energy in hand already to attach to the active. So we're going to see 2 Palkia. Oh, wait, no, there's not an energy. I take that back. There is not. Oh, there's the Capacious Bucket.
Yeah, that's as good as an energy.
It's
That'll
do.
do.
It's as good as an energy. So Owyn's going to have 2 Palkia set up by the end of this turn. Very different from the last game. Obviously, we only saw 1 Palkia sort of carry him through that until the last knockout of the Kamerman. This time, as he said, rolling with Palkia, confident in his lead. And let's see if he's able to take the knockout on this Arceus here. I think the mass adds up with that bench Giratina now. And Palkia is going to take these 2 prizes.
Yeah, I think we're hitting 200 here. So, yeah, we've got 7 bench Pokemon. Yeah, 200 damage, plus a 90 on there. Will put Arceus at 290. So this will be a KO, even if Owyn doesn't bench another Pokemon. So we're kind of sitting pretty here. We do see an energy on the active. Obviously, that had to happen. That was pretty important, honestly. And now the question is, can Vinnie keep this rolling? Because it's on Vinnie, so to speak. What I want to kind of see is, I mean, you really want to take 2 KOs with Giratina and you win the game. So am I silly for saying take the KO with the damaged Giratina so that you don't really care about giving it up because you've got another one just ready and waiting to go?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I like that. As you said, his map is very clear. The X is clearly marked, right? He's got 4 prizes sitting in front of him, but the Palkia getting that big charm really changes that narrative.
Oh.
He's going to need a choice band now.
Does he play Choice Bout? That's a very important question. I've got to go to the deck list here, Benji. This is important. There are 2 Choice Bout in this list.
So the story is not wrapped up yet. Obviously, that Choice Band can cancel out that big charm. But as I was saying, the X is marked the spot. The Giratinas know what targets they need to get through. Vinnie, obviously, after that, if the Palkia doesn't end up coming in the active, just the boss needed for another Giratina to take a knockout. But first, the first step he needs, Ross, is another energy for the Giratina to be able to attack.
Yeah, that energy is going to be huge. And I really want to see him V-Star the one on the bench because otherwise, I mean, if I'm Owyn here, I really want to take out the bench Giratina V because then the V-Star is still going to be in range. So I think evolving that bench Giratina is a huge thing if it's possible to pull it off. And there is at least 1 energy in hand, and it looks like a Raihan as well.
I really like the Raihan here. The Raihan, a really nice top deck there. He just suffered a knockout, and Raihan puts a nice band-aid on that. Makes you feel a bit better about a knockout. Attaching an energy from the discard, exactly what he needed, and grabbing any card he wants. And what might that be?
I reckon it's going to be a Giratina V-Star. Personally, yeah, it's got to be the one.
What about the Choice Bout?
Oh, no, it's got to be Choice Bout. You're right. I want it to be Giratina V-Star, but it has to be Choice Belt, or else you're whiffing the KO. So it's actually a really awkward situation, because let's be clear, you 100% want to take Giratina V-Star, but you have to take the Choice Belt here, because tools are just too hard to go and grab. So do we have any way? It's a Radiant Gardevoir.
Gardevoir, nice here.
There's an energy. I love that. Oh, missing the V-Star is awkward, but we do have a Bibarel here. I didn't see it. I think I saw a quick ball, but that's not going to do it.
Didn't see it.
Or was it something else?
No, it doesn't look like. I think it would have come straight down if he did have it. But Vinnie here probably going to be really happy. That Raihan was probably the perfect card he could get. Those choice bands, only 2 of them. He would have had to do a bit of digging. That Bibarel only ending up drawing him 3. But hand-picking it with Raihan feels pretty good.
Yeah, some cards are just easier to find than others. So Owyn's in such an awkward situation here. He really wants to KO the bench Giratina, right? But if he does that, then the active Giratina is just going to come right back and win the game. So you KO the active Giratina, but then if Vinnie's got the V-Star, he just KOs you right back and wins the game.
Yeah.
So I think Vinnie is in an amazing position here. I do think you have to go after the active. I think it's got to be done. And Owyn here does seem to be setting up for a potential abominable play in a turn or two, although you will need to start getting some energy down now. So maybe that's what we're going for here.
Yeah, I think Palkia living up to its old art and stuck in a bit of a mirror maze here. Everywhere it's turning, it sort of looks like the same outcome on the other side of the board. If I hit this Giratina, the other one hits me. If I hit that one, the other one just needs a V-Star to knock me out as well. So sort of stuck in a box here. The Palkia needs to find answers, maybe taking a knockout somewhere else or bossing something up and creating sort of an awkward scenario while he's able to set up another attacker. But Vinnie just one KO away from winning this game.
Absolutely, and that's so awkward if you're Owyn. You don't really have a single prize attacker that can do anything. You need to hit 190 this turn. That is a lot to ask for. The good news is Palkia's well over that at this stage. We're good. Oh, no. Actually wasn't well over it. Was just over it, but now we're easy. We're good. And we've got a choice bout just in case. So the KO is here, but we're at that point in the game where it doesn't really matter what Owyn does. It's kind of irrelevant almost. The question is, does Vinnie have a Giratina V-Star? Couldn't get it last turn, had to get that choice belt, but now it's very important.
I think the biggest thing here for Vinnie, if he doesn't already have access for it in his hand, will be thinning his hand as much as he can, and hopefully that Bibarel can draw him up to 5 cards, and hopefully he can see the V-Star to close out this game.
Doesn't have it in hand.
Not in hand.
Would have played differently if he did.
Does have a Marnie, at the very least, to see more cards. But as I said, thinning his hand here might be quite important, just being able to try and see it.
Yeah, just try and get a bit of access to it. So we get an energy onto the Arceus there. We see a quick ball being played for nothing. I mean, you're going to have to, I think you do have to look when you play a quick ball. We do see an Arceus there.
Is there a Giratina V-Star in deck? Can I see one? I think that was it there, just behind the boss's orders there.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure it's in there. Yeah, and you do bench the Arceus here because you know you're going to be drawing with Bibarel. So you need to increase your odds as much as possible. You don't want any, you want as few cards in the deck as possible to raise your chances of grabbing that Giratina. So even though it doesn't really do you any good, you kind of have to bench. Well, did he bench it? Oh, no, but this is kind of a similar thing because you play Marnie. Yeah, so you're not benching it, but you are putting it at the bottom of your deck, which is basically the same thing. It amounts to, I will not draw it off the Marnie, I will not draw it off the Bibarel, and that's all you're going for. So you didn't have to bench it because you could put it on the bottom of your deck. We don't see the V-Star yet. We see a Lost City coming into play. This is just deck thinning. This is all irrelevant. We do see the Bibarel coming down. Do we see the V-Star? We do! Vinnie takes game 2, and we are tied up at 1 apiece. That was tense at the end.
That was real tense. However, Bibarel, there was a lot of talk afterwards. Andre Skubal, his finishing words, play Bibarel. And once again, the man with the teeth has showed us his worth.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Bibarel. I mean, I've got to give a shout out to the Okacheke artwork. It is a stunning piece of art on that Bibarel. But it's also a very good card as well as being very pretty. And just people, it's a weird format we've ended up in here where there's an awful lot of getting stuff, you know, cherry picking one card with Drizzle, going and getting 1 out of 2 cards with Comfy. And sometimes just having something like Bibarel, which will just draw until you got 5 cards in hand. And just being able to draw 2, 3, 4 cards every single turn can actually, over the course of a game, be so much more beneficial than something like a Comfy. It's risky right now with Sableye running around just preying on stuff like Bibarel, but no, this is just a great game there from both players. And it's another one of those, there's nothing really Owyn could have done there. He played a great game. He set himself up beautifully, but the fact of the matter is Vinnie had what he needed.
Yeah, I think that Vinnie hit not only what he needed, but hit it really at the key moments in time. There was never any point in the game where I felt, oh, he has to discard this card very awkwardly. His hand isn't playing out the right way. It seemed like not only the things he wanted, but in the right order as well. So it was always smooth sailing for him. I felt like he had a clear game plan, a clear map, as I said, all the way from start to finish. Yeah,
and it worked out absolutely beautifully for Vinnie there. So it does look like...
Oh, wow, 2 Arceus V-Star in the prizes and the Bibarel. The Crabominable for Owyn over there, meaning that we're not going to see a similar play. Well, the Hisuian Heavy Ball might just grab that out now. Grabbing that, the Crabominable can come back out if he wants that back in hand. It was the thing that sealed the game for him, game 1. So he is maybe, going to want it and put it in hand, just so he's got that option for him later game.
Yeah, there's always an opportunity to go kind of, even if you don't have the Intellion out, there's always a chance to go and kind of Zigzagoon, scoop up net, Zigzagoon, scoop up net, Zigzagoon, smash with Abominable after a star portal. You can pull those plays out of almost nowhere with the right cards in hand.
Just the Palkia V attach and pass. Obviously, Owyn did have the Irida in hand, obviously not able to play it because of his first turn. So as long as he can find his way out on his second turn, get some things down, those Sobbles down, those other Palkias that he wants and needs, he should be able to see his way into this game. But so far, not looking as good as his previous 2 games have on his first turn.
No, not at all. Vinnie, for his part, has gone and got himself a Crobat V, which is fantastic. Means that you can go and draw until you've got 6 cards in your hand. First, we're going to fin a little bit with an Ultra Ball. Thank goodness that is a Giratina V-Star, not an Arceus, because there's only 3 Arceus V-Star in the deck. 2 are in the prizes. Discarding 1 early would have been an absolutely terrible situation. Am I going silly, or has Vinnie put a double turbo energy and a choice belt on a Gardevoir?
I think he has. I think he just wanted to thin his hand a little bit with the Crobat. It was looking pretty ropey in his hand before he did that. The Crobat at least getting him the Ultra Ball at the very least. I think Gardevoir can attack for a Psychic DCE, right? 70, 20 more for each energy on both actives.
Of your opponent's active.
So it has got some use in the matchup, I guess, if you're sort of forced into it. As you said, emergency attack, should we say, if you find yourself there. But I think it was more just to thin that hand, get that down. But that does mean, though, that Arceus once again misses turn 1 attachment. And
that is not a good thing at all. You go over to your opponent, and actually, if Owyn's got the V-Star here and an energy, we'll get a KO on that Radiant Gardevoir, go up by a prize. And Vinnie just doesn't have much going on. It's just not. There's just not much here. Needs to get a better start. I mean, Owyn obviously did not have a good turn 1 either, and we've kind of got a slow start from both players here. But Palkia is way better at, we saw this a lot in the last game where we had a player who basically just drew nothing like all game because they couldn't use their Sableye engine, and yet they were rocking along because it's 1 evolution, 2 energy attachments. If Owyn's got the V-Star and the energy, and we've just seen the Capacious Buckets, we know he's got the energy, this could end up being kind of a, I don't have much, but I'm going to poke you with Palkia.
Yeah, I think definitely getting the Greninja here, trying to see a few more cards in hand. The double cross switcher off the Greninja as well. Not necessarily relevant right now, but I think at some points of the game you'd be pretty happy seeing those 2 cards come off the top. But the Palkia V-Star coming down, the energy attachment. Owyn's definitely going to be able to attack this turn. Being able, I'm just trying to see the Guardian now with the -20.
Now there's a KO.
I was going to say, and the extra Pokemon coming down. Debunks what I was about to say. The Zigzagoon, a nice ping on that Arceus, setting up that Crabominable ready to go with just an Intellion ping now, able to take a knockout on the V-Star.
Yeah, we needed 4 bench Pokemon to get the KO. It wasn't there initially, but then as soon as that Crabominable went down, we were good. And it actually meant that Owyn could go and do a ping somewhere else. And we saw that 3 damage on a V-Star is a magic number to get Crabominable rolling and get the KO.
That is rough for Vinnie. Just the Giratina top deck. Obviously, he wanted to see the Giratina to bench it, but not as his only card that turn. Only energies left in his hand, just an attachment and a pass. And Owyn now, he sees the end game. He knows that he can get it. Playing fast now, making sure he gets this game closed up in the last 6 minutes that he has. Another Capacious Bucket for those energy.
Yeah, when you're tied 1 each, you need to make sure you try and actually finish out this game, and that is exactly what Owyn's going for here. We're just going for pure speed, and it needs to be just announcing attacks. We have set up some Pokemon, although actually that ping's going to become a little bit irrelevant in a minute, but we can still attack with Palkia, and it's one of those, Owyn's probably got, I don't know, 4 turns maybe remaining to take 5 prizes. Absolutely doable, but it needs to be, nice, fast-paced, let's just go through this. The annoying thing is, you KO'd the Gardevoir. Is Vinnie even going to play another single prize Pokemon in this entire game? I would guess not.
You'd imagine not. It gives too easy of a prize, Matt, right?
But but Bidoof. It could be a Bidoof. Bidoof's good.
It could be. The Irida here grabbing a key choice band to be able to KO that Arceus in the active, dropping that Sobble as well, the key Sobble that we were discussing, grabbing him all the cards that he needs. KOing that Arceus, pulling ahead. There is no way for Vinnie to accelerate that energy now. Giratina only energy in his hand as well. It's not looking good. I think Vinnie knows as well as we do this game is not going anywhere. Just the attachment. And it's a sitting duck in the active
Yeah.
now. That Pelkia is going to mop the Giratina up, you would imagine.
Vinnie playing nice and fast, not trying to take this to a draw, just, you know, acknowledging that there's nothing here, just plays out your turn, no time wasting here, just straight away, hand it over to Owyn, and that is probably going to give Owyn enough time here to actually finish out this game. Only 3 prizes left to take. Now we see the cross switcher on the Crobat. That's an easy 2 prizes, and now it's just going to be a case of getting the KO onto that Giratina, and we could even see something like a Crabominable just rolling, or honestly a 2-hit KO. This game is not going to last much longer, Benji.
No, I think the knockout here, as easy as it gets for Pelkia in 2 prize knockouts, a Crobat and Lumineon, and Eldegoss, of course, so he's going to really like to see that. The cross switcher, as I said, coming off the top of that Greninja, both of them at once, ended up being key cards for him to be able to take this knockout. And pushing ahead now, he's going to only have 1 prize left at the end of this turn, and then it's easy doors from there.
Yeah, it looks like we're hitting, I want to say, what we got? We got 6, it's 120, it's a 180, it's 190. So, yeah, I think we're pretty good here. I think he did need the full bench there, but we are there anyway. So we are good. No, we're 210, I think. Either way, we're definitely getting the KO on Crobat. So that's quite nice. Now we just see the Giratina going up, and there really isn't very much going on here at all. We do see a KO, which is nice. I mean, could Vinnie just do that 3 times? The answer is no. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. As long as Owyn's actually got an attacker, which is not the case right now. This would be one of the weirdest comebacks I've ever seen if it actually works.
I think comeback, it would be a Hollywood story, would it not? I mean, Giratina obviously having to discard the energy off itself, that's never really something it wants to do. If it can discard it off the Arceus, that's usually your key point to take those energy at this point in the game. But it's unlikely now that Vinnie's able to accelerate. I think Raihan, the only card to allow him to get multiple energies on board in the turn apart from Arceus. Of course, no other knockouts happening in this game apart from the one that finishes it. So Raihan no longer active. So it's going to take 2 attachments to get that Giratina going again.
Yeah, that is not a good situation. We do see
and
echoing horn
boss.
onto Gardevoir, brings it up, and did it get the KO?
Boss Star Portal.
Now we're going to get the KO. And there we go. Owen Kamerman takes a very quick game free and takes a 2-games-to-1 match. That was unfortunate for Vinnie. Let's not pretend that game free was, you know, tense and stressful. It's just one of those things. Vinnie's deck did not cooperate. A good series overall, but game 3, little bit of a letdown there. Sometimes your deck does not cooperate, but Owyn there goes to 4-0. And I mean, we picked out Tord and Owyn here as 2 players who are just phenomenal. We've got Tord, who's the best player of the past 10 years. Owyn, who's #1 on the global leaderboard right now. And what we basically see is, yeah, they're both 4-0. They're both playing very good decks. They are 2 of the players we are really going to be keeping our eye on as we go through this tournament.
Yeah, I think not only this tournament, but the rest of the season, right? I mean, Owyn right at the top of the leaderboard, and Tord, he always ends up floating right up there by the end. I think it's inevitable. But that game, I think today the narrative has been really weird. Arceus, something that we were expecting quite a lot of, really good result in SLC. As we said, many different combinations. You can have the Giratina obviously being one that we thought Europe would represent quite a lot. However, a few losses on stream now already for Arceus Day, and we're only 4 rounds in.
I think we've seen Arceus lose 2 rounds and draw 1.
That's right.
Maybe lose all 3 rounds. No, because we had Tord do it. We've seen a bunch of losing from Giratina on stream. So yes, Arceus Giratina, it's a deck that is clearly being well represented. But like we're seeing it lose at like 3-0.
Yeah,
so it's not like it's a bad deck that's not going anywhere, but it's got all the hallmarks so far, and we're still a long way from the end. But it's at the moment it's looking like one of those decks which is going to do all right, push a few into cut, but not really have those big results we're maybe looking for.
I think they need to change the poster boy of the set, right, to Gudra. It's already won a regional. I think it deserves it. He's a dragon type as well. I'm making a claim. I think it deserves it. But yeah, I do think it's a really interesting narrative. Obviously, right at the start of the day, we mentioned Giratina, something that Europe's going to have to bring back into the limelight, and it's not quite done the job so far again. But you can't undermine anything that Owyn did in that game. Fantastically played, especially in game 3. Although he didn't have to do much, you have to play those things right, not overextend even when you can see the win in sight.
Yeah, and it was very well played. When you see these good players like Tord, like Owyn there, you need to really, if you're a newer player or you want to get better at the game, just watch players like that. Because you see them, they don't miss anything, and they make these optimal plays. And sometimes it's something they did a couple turns in advance, and you never really saw it coming and then it all kind of pays off. You're like, oh, you know, like that Crabominable play. There was the tiny little ping from Galarian Zigzagoon in game 1. Didn't really mean anything. And then a couple turns later, what did we see? Oh, he can get Inteleon out and then drop another 2 damage counters and then get Crabominable, and oh wait, he's KO'd a V-Star.
Oh wait. And I'm sure when you say keep your eye on good players, you're talking about people like me and you, right? I'm sure.
I mean, I hate to break it to you, we're not actually playing in this event, Benji. We've got something else to do, but I would argue it's sometimes even more fun.
Yeah,
I
don't even think it's an argument for me. This is where I want to be behind the desk, especially with Euros. But we're looking now, obviously, our round 5 starting. We've got 2 games over round 4. What are you looking forward to seeing now? We've seen our Giratina, we've seen our Arceus. Is there anything you're looking forward? Is there anything you're hoping makes it this far? Is there anything you've got a secret love for?
I mean, going around the top tables last time I had a break, I didn't see much. I want to see something else. I want to see a Reggie deck or a Goodra deck, something we've not yet featured on stream. There are plenty of them out there, and we have got more action. We are setting up for round 5. There's going to be, look, we got 9 rounds. We're going to be here for a while yet. It's going to be wonderful. So grab yourselves a nice cold beverage. Don't go very far because, well, we've got a lot more Pokemon action to come.